everybody, my name is Deja and welcome back to my channel. Today I am filming the mid-year book freakout tag. So also, if you guys couldn't notice, I have braids currently. This is the first time that I've ever had box braids. Obviously I could wear it down, I just have it up in like a little clip right now, but I wanted to address the hair difference because I feel like y'all have seen me with my red curly hair for so long and I'm switching it up just a little bit. But anyways, I've already filmed this, but I filmed it earlier in June. I didn't like how it didn't include all the books that I read in June, and I also was talking for a very long time, and I'm trying to speed that up, but I do have multiple books for like each question. Before we get into that, I'm actually going to go over my statistics that I had for the first half of the year. So in the first 6 months of the year, I read 60 books, which is pretty good. That average is about 10 books a month, but there was also 1 month where I didn't read a single book, so considering that, it's really good. In January, I read 11 books. In February, I read 9. March, I read 13. April, I didn't read any books. In May, I read 11. And in June, I read 16. And the total pages that I read is 17,791. It's actually closer to around 18,000 because I am doing a read along of it, and it's split over 3 months, June, July, and August. And so I read around 300 pages of it in June, and so that's not included in this tab. None of the books that I read were rereads, and 25 of them were owned. And I really do want to read more owned books going forward in the second half of the year, but a lot of the books that I owned were YA fantasy, but I did a big unhaul of all of those, and I bought myself a whole bunch of thriller and romance books that I'm really excited to read. So hopefully this will make it so my own books is higher in the second half of the year. And I do have a haul coming of all those books, but I have some more timely videos like these that need to come out first. So books by type, I read 40 novels, 15 novellas, and 5 graphic novels / manga, and that means 2/3 of my reading has been fully novels. So for format of the books, 36.7% have been on audio, 25% ebook, 30% as a mixture of audio with either ebook or physical, and 8.3% I've read fully as a physical book. Then for representation of books, I have a lot of slices in this pie, so I'm not going to go over every single one, but the biggest slice is 43.3% of the books that I've read have had multiple things represented, and then 28.3% has been other, which is basically something that's not included in queer, POC, disability, mental, religion, and the third biggest slice is 13.3% none, which is still pretty good. 13.3% is really not bad. This year I actually did start tracking what is being represented if I put the multiple or other, so I do have that being tracked as well, which is really nice. And then 20 of the authors that I read this year have been POC, so about 1/3 of them, and that's actually not too bad in my opinion. I would like to raise it up to somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2, but 20 is not bad. Hopefully I can raise it up later in the year. And then about 2/3 of the books that I've read have been traditionally published, and 1/3 of them have been indie published. So for genre, again, I have a lot of slices in this pie, so I'm not going to go over every single slice, but the biggest is definitely romance at 38.3%, and then I have fantasy surprisingly coming in at second with 16.7%, but that is a big jump. I've read double the amount of romance that I have fantasy. Sorry if the angle's a little bit different. My mom left the TV on and there was like a fire alarm going off on the TV, so I thought there was one going off in my house, and when I came back I accidentally kicked the tripod, so yeah, but let's get back into the stats. And then coming in tied for third place is thriller and horror, which I'm happy about. I do want to be reading more thrillers because I do consider thriller and romance to be my favorite genres, but I'm glad that I'm reading more horror this year because that was definitely a goal of mine. For rating, my average rating has been a 3.82, which is pretty decent. Every year I do try and be more critical in my ratings because I feel like how I feel about the book and my rating don't always match up. So I've been trying to rate more accurately and going back and changing the rating if I feel like it doesn't accurately match how I feel. But my biggest rating has definitely been 4-star, with 21 books coming in at 4-star. I've had 8 to 9 for 3.5, 4.5, and 5 stars, and then 3 stars coming in with 6, and then not that many below 3-star. And then for intended audience, 78.3% has been adults, with 10% new adults, 10% YA, and 1.7 middle grade. So I've definitely been reading the most adult that I ever had this year. It's almost at 80%, and then new adult and YA coming in at only 20% combined. So that's actually been a really big change from last year. So now that we've gone over the stats, I am going to start the questions for the mid-year book freakout tag. So the first question is your favorite book so far this year, and I have a couple. I originally was going to tell you all my top 5, but I lowered it down to top 4 because I feel like one book could definitely be knocked off in the second half of the year if there's something better that comes along, And one of the books in the stack I think could also be knocked off, but only by another book in this series. But I will say my ultimate favorite book of the year is There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. I think about this book on a daily basis, and I have not had a book consume me the way that this book has. I have been wanting a book to do this ever since I read this book. I feel like I haven't had many books this year. Even though my average rating has been pretty high this year, I feel like I haven't had books that I've become like obsessed with it, become my whole new personality I think about every single day. I haven't really had many of those, but this book has done that. I love this book so much. This is a serial killer romance that is set on the art scene in San Francisco, I believe. It also has stalking elements, and it's just so good. It's just so good. I'm gonna put it down because it's very much making me look darker, but that is definitely my favorite book. And then another one that I have is Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. This one is such a beautiful love story. It's very dark and it hits a lot. It's very graphic in domestic abuse, but the love story that comes out of it is just so beautiful, and I think about this one quite frequently as well. And then moving on to my 2 thriller favorites, I have Blindsighted by Karin Slaughter. This one I did technically only give 4.5 stars, but that's because for Karin Slaughter, 5 stars is Pretty Girls. Pretty Girls is one of my favorite books of all time, probably like top 3 or 4, and this one is not my favorite compared to Pretty Girls, but compared to the rest of the books that I read this year, I love this book. Maybe I should bump it up to 5 stars, but 5 stars for Karin Slaughter's Pretty Girl. Like, Karin Slaughter's like 5 stars just different than everybody else's 5-star, but I really did enjoy this book, and I think that when I continue on in the series, that another book in the series could possibly outrank this one. I don't know yet, but I don't know if this one's gonna be my favorite book in the series. I do plan on continuing on hopefully this year. And the last one that I'm gonna mention is Stillhouse Lake by Rachel Caine. I absolutely love this book. It's another serial killer book. This is about a woman who begins changing her identity, and I believe she's in the witness protection program because in the past someone drove a car into her house's garage, and that's where they find a whole bunch of dead bodies and figure out that her husband's a serial killer. And so she gets a lot of hate, and she's trying to hide her kids and herself from not only her ex-husband who's in prison, but also he has a lot of fans or people who hate him and think that she played a part in his murders. But it's really good. I loved Gwen so much, and this was just like such a good, gripping, fast-paced thriller. I loved it. The next question is the best sequel that you've read so far in 2022, and I haven't had many that I absolutely have loved. One that I did really like is Zenny by Rebecca Weatherspoon. This one is a sequel because they're in the same series, but they follow different characters, so more of a companion novel. But I did enjoy Rafe, the first one, but I loved Zenny. Zenny was so good. I read it for the Queer Romance Readathon, and it's a super short, steamy novella, but I think for my review I just put like, this is pure serotonin in a novella, and that's literally what it is. It's an arranged marriage for the purpose of getting money, and I just really loved it. And then I also have A Call for Kelp by Brie Baker. I love the books in this series. They're so good, and it's the only one that I've read this year, so I put it on here. This is a cozy mystery series that takes place at the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and the main character, she runs an iced tea shop. This is the 4th book in the series. The next question is new releases you haven't read yet but want to, but I have All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. I love Sabaa Tahir so much, and I really want to read this book, and I actually have an ALC of it that I got from Libro FM because I'm part of their influencer program, so I'll probably try and pick this one up soon. And then I have Ophelia After All. I've heard such good things about this book, and even though I'm not a big fan of YA contemporary anymore, I feel like this one is going to be really cute and heartfelt. Then I have A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime. I believe this is a bully romance. I don't know much about it, but a lot of my friends have been reading it and really liking it. And then I have Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. I have now read 3 Tessa Bailey, and so I'm trying to read more of her books, especially the ones that are coming out. And I did enjoy It Happened One Summer, so I do want to continue on in the series, obviously. Then I have The Island by Adrienne McKenzie. This seems like a really fun, fast-paced summer thriller that people have been loving, so I want to love it too. Then this one I'm really excited to read, and it's Just Like Mother. I realized lately that I love the evil child trope. This one has something similar to that, so I definitely want to pick it up. And then I have You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. I read Pet by Akwaeke Emezi earlier this year, and I did really enjoy it, and I liked the writing and the themes and the characters. So this is their romance debut, so I definitely want to pick it up, and especially because this cover is so stunning. And the last one that I have is Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May. I know that I believe this one is like a historical, like witchy book, I remember reading the synopsis and really liking it. I actually had an arc of this that I didn't get to in time, but this one is still one that I think about reading a lot because it just seems so good. And then the next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I have a lot. So the first one that I have is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. I love The Year of the Witching so much. It's one of my favorite books and I think about it a lot as well. And this is her second book that she's coming out with. So I don't even know what it's about, but I don't need to know. Maybe it has vampires. I don't know. I literally don't know. The next one that I have is Stay Awake by Megan Golden. I read The Night Swim and absolutely adore that book as well. So I definitely want to pick this one up. And the synopsis seems so interesting with this woman just waking up in a taxi and having like Stay Awake written on her hands. Then I have The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. So you can probably see a trend that the books I'm really excited to pick up for the second half of the year are from authors that I've already read and loved books from. So Tiffany D. Jackson, I've read almost all of her backlist except for White Smoke. And this one I think I'm going to love. White Smoke scares me because I don't think I'm gonna like it, but this one is a Carrie retelling, and like what else could you want? And the cover is beautiful, and I just love Tiffany D. Jackson. I think this is going to be so interesting. I've never seen a Carrie retelling before, and especially with like black characters by black author, like gonna eat it up. And then I have Anastasia by Sophie Lark. I love Sophie Lark. As you can see, There Are No Saints is my favorite book of the year, and she is coming out with like an Anastasia retelling, and she's been talking about it for so long. You could tell that she's done so much research, put so much hard work into this book that I'm just so excited to pick it up because I know it's going to be phenomenal. She just has put so much time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into this book. And then I have The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. I've actually not read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife yet by Ashley Winstead, but this one seems so interesting and like culty, and I love a good cult, so I'm really excited to pick this one up. And then I have A Million to One, and I read The Henna Wars by this author, and I really like it. It's one of my favorite YA contemporaries to this day, so I definitely need to pick up their most recent work. And the last one that I have is Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. I am highly anticipating this one. I love The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey, and this one I'm just super anticipating. I was going to read it as soon as it came out, but we're actually reading it for Stacks of Strange for August, I believe, so I'm going to hold off for a little bit, but I'm so anticipating it. Then the next question is the biggest disappointment. So I have a couple for this one. The first one is The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne. I'm not a big fan of historical romances. I've only actually read 2 now, including this one, and I did enjoy the first one that I read, which was The Duchess Deal, but you know, like I've never really felt a draw back to the genre, and I kind of wanted to see if I actually didn't like the genre, because as I said, I enjoyed that book, but like I never wanted to read more of that genre. So we picked this for a Swim Sisters book club pick, but this one was just okay. I had an okay time, and this is like on people's top 10 favorite historicals ever. Like I know that Chandler Ansley just made a video about people's top 10 historicals, and this was on that list in like probably like 6 or 7, and I just thought it was okay. I think I gave it a 2.5 star. It was fine, and I was just disappointed because I heard that this one was darker and more emotional, and so I thought it was going to really appeal to the type of books that I like, contemporary romance but in a historical, but it just disappointed me. And then I have Girls of Storm and Shadow by Natasha Young, and this book, I love Girls of Paper and Fire so much, and this is the sequel to it, and I just didn't really enjoy it too much. I think I gave it 3 stars, and it was just okay. There was a lot of like action, and it was very much giving like filler fantasy book. You can definitely tell that it's the second book in a fantasy series because not much really went on. Just a lot of like fighting and traveling and not much character development. The characters doing annoying things that I didn't think that they would do because it doesn't really work with the characters that they were in the first book. I don't know. It was just okay. I didn't have a bad time by any means. It just wasn't what I wanted it to be. And the last one that I'm going to mention is Always Been You by QB Tyler. I was so excited to read QB Tyler, and I definitely am still going to read more of her work, but I thought she was going to write these really like taboo romances that had a lot of heart behind them, but this book was so much smut. I feel like the characters fell flat. The situation around them was dealt with, I thought, pretty actually okay, like the tabooness, because this is like adoptive sister and adoptive brother that have known each other since the youngest one was like 2 or 3, but this book I feel like lacked character development because so much of it was smut. And I don't know, I feel like I don't have a problem with that, but when it's like, this was originally a novella, and I think it would have worked as a novella, but I feel like she just took the novella, added in more smut, and then called it a full book, and I feel like that doesn't work for me. If I'm there for a smutty novella, I'm there for a smutty novella, but when you're a full-length book, like, I need more character development, personally. And I actually do want to talk about my worst book of the year as well, because there's not a question for it, and that, for me, that was Where Dreams Ascend. I gave this book 1 star. I did not have a good time. I think I originally gave it like 2 stars, but I lowered it down to 1 because I just can't stand this book. I don't know. I still own a physical copy and it's stunning. It's like an Owl Crate special edition that has like no dust jacket. But every time I look at that book, I literally see red. Like I literally get mad. And I don't have really any other book on my shelf that does that. Even if I didn't really enjoy a book, I still get like happy because I like books. But then when I see that book, I'm like, This book just was so boring. It had no character development. I don't think I like carnivals in books. And I just didn't have a good time at all. That's all I have to say on that. The next question is biggest surprise, and for that one I actually had a couple different answers, but this one is the biggest surprise to me. That is Survivor by J.F. Gonzalez, and it's not the biggest surprise based on what you think. I thought that I was going to really like this book, and I did. I ended up giving it 4 stars, but I was actually not going to rate it around the 40% mark because it was doing what it was trying to do well. It's extreme horror, and it was doing the extreme horror thing. So I was like, okay, well, it's doing what it did well, but I wasn't having a good time anymore. I wasn't enjoying myself, but I wanted to finish out the book. I didn't know if I could. I literally had to binge this book in one day because I could not physically take this book into another day. I was just surprised because I thought my extreme horror threshold was high and that this book would be difficult but like kind of a piece of cake at the same time. Like I thought like I'd be fine, you know. At certain points in this book I was not fine. I was not okay. By the end I was okay. The worst of it comes about the 40% mark, and then after that it's really not as bad, but I was just quaking in my crocs. I was like surprised that this book was pushing my limits because I've never had a book push my limits and this one didn't. So that's why I was surprised. Then I'm also going to mention The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager and Gone to See the Riverman also kind of fits for this. Both of these are a type of thriller slash horror that has a trope in it, or that goes in a certain direction that I don't normally like. It's speculative. Both these go into a more speculative area, which I don't normally like in thrillers and horror, but I did really enjoy both of these books a lot. And The House Across the Lake, I knew that going in, and I was surprised that it still worked for me. And I think if I didn't know that going in, I wouldn't have liked it as much. But Gone to See the Riverman, I heard nothing about, and Marcy from Marcy Reed just recommended it to me for my 12 books to read by 12 friends in 12 months, and I absolutely loved it. So yeah, it was so good. So for question 8, that is newest fictional crush, and for me, I'm going to go with August West from Longshot. I love August. He is like the perfect hero to me. He is so sweet and caring, and I do love him. And personally, my taste in men tends to be black ones, and he is that. And he is a basketball player, which I don't know why because I don't really like sports like that, but I love a good sports player. Okay, that's one thing about me. So like I feel like August West would be like the person I would actually go for in real life. Like I would actually have a crush on him in real life, which doesn't normally happen in books. I feel like in books I have crushes on characters, but they're not actually someone that like in real life I would go for. I just like them in a fictional sense, but August I would go for in real life. He's so cute. I love him. And then obviously I have to go with Cole from There Are No Saints. I love him too, but Cole is a stalker. Okay, I would not go for him in real life, but I love him. And even though he's like such a little serial killer, I just love him because his mind is so fascinating to me. I think Cole has one of the most interesting minds of any character that I've ever read. So definitely have to mention him as well. And the last one I'm going to mention is Averin from Feed. This is actually the heroine, and I love her. She's a succubus, and everything about her I just love. And I was going to put this in most surprising as well because this is a monster romance, which I didn't think that I would like, but I actually really like this novella. But Averin, I don't know, something about her, she's just giving. Question 9 is newest fictional character. So I'm going to go with Gwen from Stillhouse Lake for my first one because she is so like kick-ass. She really is trying to be protective of her kids. That's like one thing that I know is like she wants to protect her kids, and she doesn't take nobody's BS. She used to just be like a little housewife, like didn't really know much, to now being like someone who can literally fend for herself, can kill people, will do what she has to do for her and her kids, and I love that so much. I also have Lana from the Mindfuck series. Again, this is very similar. She's just very kick-ass. She's getting revenge for what was done to her, and while it is morally gray, it is what she wants to do, and she is not going to bow down to nobody, and I love it for her. I've only read the first 2 books in the series, but I really do love Lana and her little serial killer tendencies. And the last character that I'm going to mention is Chamaka from Ace of Spades. And Chamaka is not a likable character, but I see myself in Chamaka. I feel like Chamaka, even though she's like 17, I think she's a senior in high school, I feel like she was me when I was like a freshman or a sophomore in high school. So I can really see myself in her, and that's why I like her. I really just see my flaws in the problems that I had, in the beliefs that I had that I don't believe in now in her. And while that is really frustrating to see because I know that she can grow and be better, I just really enjoyed seeing myself as a younger character represented. And she's literally mixed too, like me, and she also has like a black mom, white dad like me. So just seeing it was so nice, and I just had a good time. Question 10 is a book that made you cry, and I would almost put Long Shot on here because that book is really emotional, but it actually did not make me cry. The book that made me cry was The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. I
also really loved this book.
It'll probably be in the runner-ups for my favorite of the year, but I really like this book. I definitely see that it has flaws and problems, and I don't think it's going to be for everybody, but something about the end just really hit. I don't know, it had me so emotional. I was sobbing. The next question is a book that made you happy, and so the first one I'm going to have is My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. I just finished this one, and I actually did not read it in the first half of the year, but you know, I read it in the beginning of July, but I'm gonna count it. This book is like a smutty romance cozy mystery, and I love smutty romances. I love cozy mysteries, so combining them together, it made me really happy. And cozy mysteries are really cozy, and something about that makes me happy, even though it has murder in it. I don't know. And the last one I'm going to mention is The Wash Day Diaries, and this is a graphic novel, but it is about a group of black girls that are friends, and we see all of them and their struggles in life, but also their goals and their dreams and hopes in life, and they're all doing their hair. And I think that seeing such a diverse group of black women and how they all do their hair different. They're such fleshed out characters. They're not one-dimensional. They're not stereotypical. So seeing black women represented in such a beautiful way, I loved it. It made me so happy. So question 12 is the most beautiful books that you've bought or received this year. So obviously I have to go with There's No Saints and There Is No Devil by Sophie Lark. This duo is stunning. I just love snakes so much. I love snakes in art. I want to get a snake tattoo. So I just love these covers so much. And then also I obviously talked about Long Shot, but this is a special edition cover, and I'm going to buy the other books in these covers as well because I need to have them in their limited edition. But it's just so stunning, and I just love the art style, and it's just beautiful. And also, You've Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty I talked about as well, but I just love the orange. It's so bright with the leaves and this beautiful black woman on the front. I just love this cover. It's so beautiful. And then the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I have a lot, obviously. So I have my 22 books to read in 2022. I have 12 books recommended by 12 friends to read in 12 months as well. And I really need to get to the other books on those lists. One that I'm really thinking about is I need to continue on in the Throne of Glass series. I obviously need to read There Is No Devil by Sophie Lark because I need to read the sequel to my favorite book of the year. And then also I want to continue on with the Mindfuck series as well. And like reading the books that I talked about for my most anticipated of the year so far, getting to the arcs that I have as well, just stuff like that that I really need to continue on with is like mostly series, and I want to read more of authors' backlist that I really like, so I want to continue on reading the Kingmaker series by Sophie Lark as well. I realized that I skipped question 7, so I'm circling back, and that is newest favorite authors of the year. I actually don't have many options for this because most of the authors that I've read this year I've either read from before or I've only read one book from them this year, so I can't really declare them a favorite. But I have Alexandria House as the main one because I read 3 of her novellas this year and I really enjoyed them. I read the Them Boy series and it was really heartfelt and cute and fun, and I just loved how untraditional those romances were. So that's all that I have for this video today. I hope y'all enjoyed this mid-year book freakout tag. I know I did. And if y'all could just leave like the shocked emoji down below because, you know, freak out. And it's halfway through the year. I don't know where June went. June evaporated. And I literally only have a month left until I go back to school. Well, I go for training to be an RA about 2 weeks before classes start. So I really have a month and a half until classes. But I move back and I start the school year kind of back up again in about a month. So that's exciting. We'll see what happens then. But thank y'all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed, as I said, and I'll see y'all in my next one. Bye, everybody.
Trying to look like you winning. I'm writing rhymes in the kitchen, soaking in moments we live in. Yeah, you got the nerve to be on me, faking your life for the IG. If you got my number, don't add me, 'cause baby